Okay, today is the first week of Advent, and traditionally Advent is the anticipation of the advent of the birth of the Messiah. And in Unity we treat this whole idea in a different way, that the birth of the Messiah is an awakening to our own spiritual nature. That birth is an inner process. And so I have, those of you that have been coming here for the last couple of years know that I treat this Advent season a little differently than traditionally, because of the difference in how we approach the whole thing. We would call it, if you want to use the biblical terms, the birth of Christ within. As Paul said, Christ in you is your hope of glory. Christ is a title. It is not the last name of Jesus. You probably have heard that before. But it is a title, and it means anointed. And originally it was reserved for kings and prophets who were anointed into a special position to be acknowledged and honored in a special way. And that title basically is transferred to Jesus. But the Messiah, or the Christ, I should say, is a title. And it's should not be confused with that, but it is easy to do that because it is an ancient term. It doesn't come from our modern vocabulary. We have taken it and we've tried to translate it, and I've personally managed to handle that okay. I can say Christ, and I can mean that spiritual dimension in myself. But if you will pick up any written document and you go online or whatever, you type in Jesus, you'll see that the words Jesus, Christ, Messiah, all of these things are used interchangeably. They're not understood by the average person as having to do with us. They have to do with Jesus. And so when I say I am the Christ, which is, when we understand the title, it is correct. But go out there and tell the world that you are the Christ and see what the reaction that you get. You'll be called a blasphemer. And I'm sure we've all been called worse, but we would be speaking the truth. But we're using a language that we don't use today, that most people don't use in any other than a religious sense. So we have to translate in our own minds. What do we mean by Christ? It means the soul. It's the true spiritual essence of every person. And we say that Jesus attained Christ consciousness. He's a person who totally woke up to his spiritual nature. And the good news that he came to share, that he began sharing in his ministry, was the Christ is in you as well. Why do you call me good? Only one is good, and that is God. But God abides in all people. And so we get into this terminology thing, and it's a little bit challenging. So I don't suggest that we get rid of it, that type of terminology, the religious terminology. It is tradition with all of us. It's in all of our Christmas songs. It's every place we go. It's our Western tradition. But while we are hearing these words, we are also translating. We're seeing them in a different way. We're seeing them in a way that is meaningful to us. So the question that is raised, that is debated among theologians, was Jesus human or was he God? And what I find interesting is that question is not applied to us. It's only applied to the one man. Was Jesus human or was he God? But what if Jesus was a human being that came to tell us we are all expressions of God? That puts him in a very different category. He's not a larger-than-life figure anymore, although he accomplished an awareness, no doubt, that is beyond the average person's. But even that we don't know for sure. We don't have direct writings from Jesus. It's unfortunate that we don't. It's too bad that he didn't write letters like Paul did. We know a lot more about Paul than we do Jesus, because he wrote letters or he dictated letters and had them written. Some scholars think that he only actually wrote one by his own hand that he dictated. And why couldn't Jesus have done that? Well, a lot of people think he did, and that's what we have in the Gospels, and it's not true. It's not how they came about. But anyway, we get past this idea of looking for a Messiah, looking for someone to come and change the world. Because we begin to understand that as we open our minds to that Christ, to that inner presence, that's what changes our world. It's exactly like standing in a valley, and your view is very limited. But as you go within yourself, as you open yourself to deeper levels of your own being, it's like climbing a hill, and your vision gets better every step you take. It's the same world, but a different viewpoint. And so the salvation that we seek is an awakening to a larger dimension that is centered in each one of us. And that's what we consider the spiritual birth. It's a conscious awareness of our oneness with God. And that is something that's not easy to achieve, which is why we have religion. You can just join a religion and you're part of the group. But the narrow gate of self-awareness is difficult. But we are all called to do it. We're all called to come up higher, to discover who and what we are at the deepest level. We're beckoned by our own soul. And as I point out in my book, The Complete Soul, we are already complete, which is why we feel inadequate. That makes no sense at all. If I'm complete, why would I feel inadequate? It's because I'm living not out of my complete awareness, the awareness of my complete soul, but out of an inadequate self-image, one that I and the world around me has formed. And it is absolutely necessary for each of us to get on that path, understand that's what's happening. The thing I must overcome is myself. It's my own self-image. That's the thing that stands between myself and an awareness of God. And I think that's why Jesus said things like, the things I do, you can do also, and greater things, because I go to the Father. I'm in touch with my true self. But you can do that as well. But he, as any spiritual teacher would, understands the difficulty of people getting that, of understanding that idea. That's why we have ritual. But we get tied up in ritual. The ritual of baptism, for example. Before you are immersed in the water, as I was immersed in water many, many years ago, the idea is you're a sinner. You're incomplete. You're immersed in the water, you're brought out. You're completely covered. and you're brought out a different person. That's the symbology. That's baptism with water. To be baptized by the Holy Spirit is to awaken to the wholeness of spirit. Has nothing to do with water and being dunked or sprinkled. It's an awareness. And it may or may not come during that time, probably won't if you're actually physically baptized. But the awakening to the wholeness of spirit, the Holy Spirit, that's what we're after. That's the ultimate. And that's what keeps nagging us, keeps driving us, keeps saying there's got to be more to life, there's something more, something's missing. And I'm going to talk about that today a little bit. But so we're in part one, and we're dealing with life and enthusiasm, and what we're doing, I'm not going to do this, I'm not following the back of the program exactly today, because you have that, and I want to present in a little bit different way. But the four characteristics of God, and you'll find this throughout Scripture, you'll find it just in your general thinking, your general logic. The four characteristics that stand out are life, love, power, and intelligence. God is life. And that life expresses through us as enthusiasm. When we say somebody's full of life, we're saying they're enthusiastic. So we connect those two ideas. Love expresses as understanding. A very loving person is an understanding person. Power expresses as strength. God is my source of power, is my strength, whether it's physical strength or whether it's strength of faith. And intelligence expresses as order. You look at a simple flower and you'll see order. There's intelligence there. Just look at nature, you'll see intelligence everywhere, and you'll see order everywhere. It's only as humans get involved, because we are gifted with this great imagination, that we can get out of order. But nature flows in harmony. It works quite well when left on its own, and many cultures have learned to cooperate with that, and our culture is a little different. There's never been one quite like it, and we are getting a little bit away. I like to go out in our desert. You know, it's a great gift that we have here, a backyard or front yard, whatever it is. And I go out there and I'll see a television set full of bullet holes, or a couch, or beer bottles that have been riddled with bullets. And I own firearms. I'm not anti-firearm at all. But I believe in cleaning up your mess. And I just find that appalling for human beings to go out and deface something so beautiful. And there are people that grew up here and just think, well, it's just desert, you know. But I guess coming in from the outside, I don't think of it quite that way. So anyway, we have four characteristics of God. I talk about this all the time. And that's how we are approaching this Advent season. Forgive me if I call it Lenten season, because I got mixed up last year. This comes from the Gospel of John in the opening chapter. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. This statement is not attributed to Jesus. It's attributed to John, and there is a school of thought among critical scholars that say John was written by a school. It was a collective effort. And it probably was. All of the Johns, we have 3 epistles of John, and plus the Revelation and the Gospel of John. I think they may have all originated in the same place. And it's difficult to prove any of this stuff, but scholars, they don't have much else to do, so they study the Bible 24/7, and they come up with these things, and it's an interesting way to look at it. But I think this is one of the most powerful statements in the Gospels, because it talks about God in a twofold way, and we may not pick this up right away. In the beginning was the Word, that's one. The Word is the creative aspect of God. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. It's like I have a mind, and I have the ability to express creatively. And that's what it's saying. All things were made. Nothing was made that was not made through the Word, the creative aspect of God. What John is recognizing here is an eternal process, a creative process that is occurring all the time. It didn't just occur back then, it's occurring right now. And that Word is in us. It is our own, I call it the creative life force. It's active in us. It's creativity, and the desire of the infinite is to express and to find unlimited expression. That's why we often feel dissatisfied, like something's missing, because we are not connected consciously with this source. And so we are working to gain that connection. And I like to remind everybody that we don't have to do anything differently, in terms of we don't have to build up the ability to commune with God. We are born with that. And I've asked the choir, just brought up the idea, have you ever heard the voice of God? Most people will say no. But I would say 100% of the people on this planet have heard the voice of God. But how do they hear this voice? They don't recognize it, because that voice comes as dissatisfaction, as unrest. I desire more because at the deepest level I am more, and I don't know what that more is. So I have this gnawing unrest, sense of dissatisfaction. And the way I have tried to appease that is go out and accomplish more things and attract to myself more possessions, to add more things to my life that perhaps will make me happy. And I have discovered a long time ago that it doesn't matter what I add to my life, it's only temporary. The smile it brings to my face is temporary. The sense of accomplishment. I've written 8 books. I thought after the first book, my life, that'd be enough. I'm working on the 9th, and it's just as frustrating as the rest. And what I mean by that is the reason we feel something's missing and that some accomplishment can fulfill that is because our self-perception, our self-image, is inadequate. It never will be what we hope it will be. And so in our times of quiet, we drop down into the gut level, into the soul level, where that dissatisfaction originates. And we begin to open ourselves to our spiritual source, and we find levels of satisfaction we didn't know were possible. We make that cosmic connection. It's like the switch. We complete the circuit. There's nothing wrong with us. We're just the prodigal son out in the far country, far from our spiritual home. But the home never leaves. It's always there. So what I'm doing is taking the affirmations that you see on the back of your program, and I'm just going to take them one at a time. My soul radiates the pure, unrestricted energy of life. Let's say that together. My soul radiates the pure, unrestricted energy of life. Somebody said that we speak affirmations not to try to make them true, but because they are true. When you say something like this, act as if whatsoever you ask for in prayer, believe that you've received it. This is a prayer. My soul radiates the pure, unrestricted energy of life. We don't try to make anything happen. We simply acknowledge that it is happening. Take the burden of making it happen or trying to figure out how it's going to happen. Take that burden off of yourself. You speak the word and you let go. It's interesting that spirit is related to wind, breath, and air. We do not see the wind, but we see its effects. We see the effects of spirit, and we want to feel its presence as well. You know, even to call our spiritual essence spirit, call it something else, it creates a sense of separation. I am spirit. I am an expression of infinite spirit. God is spirit. They who worship God must worship him in spirit and in truth. That is, become aware and resonate with spirit as our source. So you see the sand dunes there. That's, I think, a photograph of the great sand dunes here in Colorado. Pretty amazing place. And what's interesting about it, the wind is always sculpting it. Beth and I have been down there several times. It always looks different because the wind is always changing it. We know but I've never seen the wind. I've just seen the sand dunes. So we see the effect. And that is a great analogy about the nature of spirit. We can't see it. But in the traditional approach, we come up with all kinds of pictures. And those are the pictures that stay in our minds. We all know what Jesus looked like, right? We all know what God looks like. We all know what the kingdom of heaven looks like. We've all seen paintings of these things. But in truth, that has nothing to do with reality. But spirit has caused somebody to paint these things. That is, I want to get a handle on what I'm thinking about here. And so we put it in form. And the unfortunate thing is we go for the form. As the map maker said, the map is not the territory. It's nothing like the territory. It just shows you where you are. So the form, all of religion, is a map. It's not the territory. The territory is you. That's what the map is supposed to lead to. Your awakening to your spiritual source. So the effects of spirit, I would go back to that idea that it's unrest. Often it's unrest. A sense of dissatisfaction, a sense that all of what I would like to have in life is not here. It is here, but I'm standing in the valley. And the remedy to that is to come up higher. And how do I come up higher? I go within myself. And I wait. And I affirm things like my soul radiates the pure, unrestricted energy of life. And I wait. And I believe a revelation is occurring. There are no blockages. There are no restrictions. Let's say that together. There are no blockages. There are no restrictions. If you take all of these together, they'll make more sense. But this idea, there's no blockages. Maybe you think you were born in sin. Maybe you think you've done something where you don't deserve greater good. Maybe you think there's something that you need to do differently that will make you okay. So the prodigal son did that. On his way home, he said, I'll just tell my father that I'm no good and I'm a worthless whatever, and go back as a servant. Well, he gets home and the father will have nothing to do with that. He throws his arms around him, throws a party. We speak of God as omnipresent. You can't leave the presence of God. You can't offend God. Just like the wind, we can block the wind, but the air is still present. You've all probably done that. You've been out on a windy day and you stand behind a windbreak of some kind. You still have air. You just don't have the wind. We can be unaware of the presence of spirit, but it is always present. I also think of it as a slightly different metaphor using water, thinking of the water behind a concrete dam. And there's a hairline crack in that dam. And the water begins to seep through there. And why does it do it? It does it because of water pressure. It's the nature. It's not doing it because it's trying to strong arm the dam. It's the nature of water to flow. And so it'll find this little hairline crack and it will work away at it. That's the kind of pressure that we're all under. The infinite is pressing in upon us at all times. And it's seeping through the cracks in our dam. That is, in that self-image that doesn't align with what is true of ourselves at the deepest level, or true of spirit. True of spirit. And so it seeps through, and it's in no big hurry. I don't think there is any dam that will stand the test of geological time. I think the best, strongest dam we have today will not be around in 1,000,000 years. And 1,000,000 years is a flash in the pan. You are an eternal being, as I am. God is in no hurry, because there is no time. But as that spirit seeps into my consciousness, I say, what is this and where's it coming from? It's really a good source of meditation to follow your own dissatisfaction, your own sense of unrest. What is this? Show me what this is. Show me why I have this. And show me how to let it go. I am filled with boundless life and unbridled enthusiasm. I am filled with boundless life and unbridled enthusiasm. Let's say that if you're feeling brave. I am filled with boundless life and unbridled enthusiasm. And that doesn't mean you have to go skipping through the mall or do anything. It just means to have enthusiasm for life is, I want to be here. I don't want to keep saying to my life, I don't like you as you are. I want to be able to say, I love being here. I love expressing. And I know there's a lot of challenges that occur. We're faced with things all the time that take us out of that mode. But we can always come back. So speaking this truth stirs in us an awareness of the breath of the Almighty. The Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty gives me life. The breath of the Almighty, that's the wind or the movement, spirit. I've told you before, the word spirit comes from the Greek word pneuma, P-N-U-M-A. UMA. And you recognize that as pneumatic. If you have a pneumatic compressor, you know what that is. It's an air compressor. People were trying to say, here's what spirit is like. It's like breath. It's like wind. It's something you can feel, but you can't see it. And what does our Western culture do? Seeing is believing. Well, what if you got a reality you can't see? You just chalk it off. It's myth, superstition. But it doesn't go away. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. And I don't pay attention to that no solicitor sign on your door. I'm going to keep knocking. And we all know that knock. We know what that is. Sometimes we get so involved in life that we can't hear it. But then it comes back. The Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty gives me life. I love that from Job. The pure radiance of my soul shines in its fullness now. The pure radiance of my soul shines in its fullness now. Let's say that together. The pure radiance of my soul shines in its fullness now. That is such a beautiful visualization, to just sit, be still, and know that the pure radiance of my soul shines in its fullness now. The soul is complete. I affirm this wholeness, expressing through every aspect of my life. So my completeness radiates out through my finances, it radiates out through my health, it radiates out through my relationships, through my work, through every aspect of my life. Because there's no place where my life begins and I leave off, or I leave off, my life begins. It's all one and the same thing. You get a person that lives in the same house for 20 years, the neighbors all know pretty much the habits of that person. They know they keep their lawn, they grow flowers, they do this and that. A new person moves in, don't do anything the same. It's consciousness. We are expressing our life. We take it with us. We are our life. So that we're one and the same. I affirm this wholeness expressing through every aspect of my life. In perfect peace, I let this pure energy rise. Together. In perfect peace, I let this pure energy rise. The natural inclination of spirit is unlimited expression. I make that point in my first book, A Practical Guide to Meditation and Prayer. That we desire more because we are more. And we will never stop desiring more. What we need to stop doing is thinking that more things will make us more of a person. It's more awareness. That's what we're after. Our desire to be more is spirit pushing through our consciousness. Okay? So that's part one of the 4-part series on Advent. Life and enthusiasm. So I hope you can join us next week when we move into love. Thank you for watching this week's program. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with others. We want to reach as many people as we can, and we appreciate your help. If you'd like to help support this ministry, just click the donate card at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Your financial support means a lot to us. We have many subjects in our video lineup, so feel free to take a look. If there's a topic you don't see and would like me to address, just put it in the comment section. I'd love to know what's on your mind. To subscribe to this channel, simply click our logo. Thanks again for your interest in independent unity, and have a wonderful week.